Hi everyone. So I'm Sophia, and this is beautiful Rae Morris.
Hi.
So if you don't know, Rae Morris is an expert when it comes to makeup and making a beautiful makeup application brushes. Now we're going to talk about the importance of the skincare and making the right choices when it comes to our makeup application. Hi, Rae.
Hi.
How are you?
Great. I'm glad I'm here. We go way back.
Yes,
I've seen you hover around at great conventions, and I've always had my eyes on you going, look at that beautiful skin. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming and doing the podcast with me. So let's talk about skincare and healthy skin and makeup. How is that interconnecting together?
Look, it sounds like common sense, but the thing I always get asked, how do you get makeup to look amazing? What's the best foundation? I think I get asked that question more than anything. And I think what the question's meant to say is, how do I make my skin look amazing with makeup? My question is, get your skin amazing. That's where people like you come in. The thing is, it's really important. The better the skin, the better the makeup. Also, makeup lasts longer on better skin because you don't have to put as much on. So I say this to anybody, that the number one thing before you worry about how much makeup or that money you're going to spend on makeup, get your skin right. Go to experts like yourself. There's so much that's happened in technology. Like when I grew up, maybe the same for you, I'm much older than you, we didn't have anything. We had 2 products that you could buy now with lasers and technology and experts. I think, there's no real reason to have bad skin now. There's something for every skin concern.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, the biggest obstacle, when it comes to, makeup choices, like when I have, for example, my patients coming in, to my clinic, and, they all love makeup and they all wanted to have this beautiful skin. And, one of the questions that I always ask, what is your concerns? What are the things that you would like to address today? And they all pretty much say, hey, I just want to have this beautiful, nice skin canvas, and I want my makeup to sit really nice and smoothly.
Yeah.
And biggest obstacle they come across, that there's just so much choices. They're going to Mecca, they're going to Sephora, they're going to David Jones, and there's going to Myers.
And there's online, and there's all the shopping online.
That's right.
There's so much.
How do you choose what's correct makeup, and correct application? Like I feel like they're so overwhelmed with what's happening, and it's not slowing down. It's like getting bigger and bigger. You're having more choices, and like I, for example, keep things very simple. Mm-hmm. But what about the younger generation these days?
Yeah.
It's all about following the trends, and what's the latest trend, how to apply the makeup, or what's the latest bronzer. Like how do you go about it?
Look, it is overwhelming because there's so much choices, and the thing is, we get so caught up in what the latest thing is. I don't follow makeup trends. I think it's a bit of a dangerous thing to do. And I think of this: if I walk down the street and I see someone with amazing makeup, I never go, wow, that's on trend. I go, wow, she looks elegant or chic. Clothes is different. You can tell what's in trend with clothes. Haircuts are the same, but makeup, that's not normally the case. Less is always more. I always think to try and find a look that's just timeless, elegant, chic. If you get confused, I think a really great tip is to find someone who's a similar skin tone and age to you, and someone whose style you really like, and just go by their example. Also, there's some really good YouTubers out there that are just, again, timeless and chic. If you get into the whole trend thing with makeup trends in social media change probably every 5 minutes, and you do get overwhelmed. So, and I don't think you need a lot of makeup. I just think find things that suit you, know your skin tone, know your eye color. And then look, the great thing is that I always find this trick too, like in Australia, if you're in Australia, like Mecca is great. The staff there is so highly trained, and you can get samples, or you can get them to go, like MAC do it as well, Sephora do it as well. You can pay an amount, you can redeem it on product. Find someone, maybe he works in the store, of makeup style that you like, get them to do it, but don't buy anything straight away.
Yeah.
Go home, walk around with it, and just try and find, like, again, go back. If you have great skin, a moisturizer and a tinted moisturizer is all you need. Learn how to do like a little bit of a smoky eye. Don't overcomplicate it. I think that's where we get really overwhelmed. Every time I try a new look, I always tend to go back. Okay, so I'm mumbling all over the place here. Look at Angelina Jolie. She has 2 makeup looks. She has 2 looks and that's all she does.
Yeah.
She does something and does it well.
Yeah.
And then maybe just change your lip color. Like, don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I must admit that it's exactly the same with the, skincare. I think following the trends gets you into big trouble.
Yeah, it does.
So it's just really important to keep it simple and being authentic. And rather than, going from one, when you fascinate one person and then another one, just, choose one and just see, who you can see and get that professional advice from rather than going from one person to another. I think in keeping simple, I think is really important.
Yeah, and just things like knowing your eye shape. Things like what color suits me. That's a big thing. How do you match your foundation? Like, a really simple tip when you match your foundation, don't match it on your jawline. That's something that I was always taught. Match it to the décolletage area. And the reason for that is you want your face and your body to be the same color. Things like when you buy lipstick, like some tips when you buy makeup, don't put lipstick on the back of your hand because that's not the same colour as your lips. Use it on your fingertip because your fingertip has a very similar...
Didn't know that because I always try lipstick on my hands.
They'll look brighter and they'll look...
wow.
Especially if you get a warm lipstick, so like an orange-based lipstick, they look really bright because your lips have normally a blue-red undertone.
Yeah.
It neutralises the warmth. So if you get a really bright orange lipstick on your mouth, it looks a bit flat.
Yeah.
So fingertips are really good tips. So things like that. Another some great tips too, if you're concerned about fine lines or if you've got scarring, keep away from shimmer. So shimmer's all over Instagram. And remember too, because you see it on Instagram, it doesn't make it a trend. It just makes it... Everyone's trying to get... I call it clickbait. Everyone's trying to do something weird or unusual just to get those followings and those likes. And you've got to remember that. So try and follow like professional working makeup artists. I think that's a really good tip. And also, a lot of the Instagram, TikTok trends that you see, it's so filtered and it doesn't help anybody. And like words I really hate too in the makeup space. I hate anti-aging. I know. I always think let's stop talking about looking old, looking younger, sorry. Yeah. Let's talk about looking healthier. So, and that comes back to good skin. If you get your skin right, and skin, as you know, it's the largest organ. Like it's diet. It's not just always about what you put on, it's what you put inside as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. What do you, like, I'm just going to go back to what you were saying in terms of, working with celebrities and working with, fashion models, what is the biggest obstacle when it comes to like aging and wanting to look younger? What is the right thing, to have?
If that's the goal, because like I said, I think if you make someone look healthier, they actually do look younger.
Yeah.
And actually it is the skin. I never forget this. One of my favourite doctors, Dr. Stephen Louis, I never forget, I was in a conference when I first met him and he was in a room full of doctors and a doctor asked him a question. They said, if you could use any device to make someone look younger, if that was the goal, and you could do anything from facelift to laser, but you only could do one thing, what would you do? And what his answer was completely changed my life as a makeup artist. What he said was, don't chase the lines, even out the skin tone. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, so actually, and as he was saying this, there was a picture that went up behind him of a woman who was 70. She was from Queensland, spent her whole life in the sun, smoked, bad diet. So she was very lined, very red, looked older than 70 for sure. And what he did in Photoshop, he removed all the wrinkles and she didn't look younger. She looked odd, she looked weird. And the second photo, he actually took out, he kept all the wrinkles.
Yeah.
He evened her skin tone.
Yeah.
She looked 50. She looked amazing. And I was like, I can do that every day as a makeup artist, even the skin tone. So if you get really nice hydrating foundation, that's another mistake that people tend to make. They judge makeup by how long something lasts. And sometimes foundations that last the longest look the driest, or they get into the lines the most. So I try and teach women that men, women, whoever wants to wear foundation, don't ever worry about how long something lasts. If it looks amazing and it needs maintenance, it needs maintenance. Because no one's ever gonna, like your skin, I can see your skin, that's why it looks so good. If you put heavy, like even, I think seeing a bit of a blemish or some lines or a bit of a pigment is actually more youthful than seeing a full face of foundation, always, every time. And, you know, I think we just need to stop worrying about covering ourselves, you know, do beautiful eyebrows. Look, your makeup, like that's perfection. I look at you and I go, skin is glowing, she's got a beautiful soft lash, brows are perfect, lips are high, you look hydrated and fresh. And that, if you came to me right now wanted your makeup done, I'd go, nothing to do here. Aww. There's nothing to do. And I mean that. It's like, you're a perfect example of, I think, how women should look. I just think you look beautiful, look divine.
Thank you. Well, I like to keep things very simple. Let's talk about in terms of you know, different countries and a perception of beauty. Like you traveling a lot for your work.
Yes.
You know, and what do you find, you know, going from one country to another? Is there like a difference between how women and men perceiving, you know, a beauty, you know, in terms of like, you know, makeup as well, application?
Yeah, you find, look, I'm finding now when I travel, it's funny, a lot of the trends are the same. It's funny because I grew up as a makeup artist, I was always told, like, when you work in on a black skin or, you know, Asian, or we always taught that. And now I look back and I go, God, that was so wrong. Because again, something I caught on a few years ago was the whole concept of phi, the Fibonacci sequence. And this is something that, again, I'll answer the question. It's kind of going to be a bit of a long answer, but it actually blew my mind. So, couple of things. So the first part of that question is yes. So when I spend time in Korea, there's so much about skincare. There's so much about having like very glass skin. When Japan, I find there's more about a matte. There's a lot of girls prefer powders, and that, again, I'm speaking very general, but for the time when I go and do makeup there, it's something that I found really interesting. So in Japan, there's a lot more powdered products, not as much shimmer. Korea, shimmer. Japan, just a lot more of a matte aesthetic, but that's being very general. But then how fascinating was this? When I was in another lecture with another plastic surgeon, he was teaching other doctors, and he was saying this thing about if you just make the face phi, it's the golden ratio. I've heard this before and I thought it meant symmetry. And then he said to this class, I was busy taking notes, he said that if you make the face phi, the face becomes the most beautiful version of itself, no matter who's looking at you. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, and I went, what do you mean by that? He said, no, if you're gay, straight, Chinese, Australian, American, African, no matter what, if your face is phi, you're more attractive to everybody. It's not like you're just more attractive to a certain race. So he said that if to make the face phi, it actually breaks that whole thing about different countries and different races. So, for example, he said things like, if you look at faces that are phi, we've got people from Halle Berry to George Clooney to Cleopatra to Kim Kardashian to Fan Bingbing, who I love. And he was talking about all different, from Helen Mirren, Jane Fonda. He went through this whole thing about all these different races, all these different ages, but he was right. They're the most beautiful version. Everyone thinks they're attractive, everybody.
That's right.
So it was really an interesting thing. So with makeup, and what basically means, it's not just symmetry, it's actually scientifically embedded. We are born that we find anything that measures phi more attractive. So as a makeup artist, I actually also came up with a formula called iPhi, or I can teach anyone to make their eyes as close to the phi shape as possible. Because again, I thought that different races want different eye shapes. And no, actually, when I sit with anybody, most men and women, or more, I work more with women, they always want an open, lifted eye, which is kind of the Egyptian Cleopatra shape. So it's funny, there's trends, but then there's not. So I'm sorry that's a very long, hard question to answer, but I do find, French, one difference I do find when I'm in Paris, women touch up their makeup all the time.
Really?
Yeah, Australians, I find, have this thing we're obsessed with, it's got to last all day. But we're in the hottest climate.
That's
and I
true.
think that's kind of the wrong way to look at it. Maintenance is the key. So that was the longest answer ever.
No, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Because I was very curious, going from one country to another, like what is the perception of beauty? And
one thing, sorry, I'm stopping you.
Yeah, go for it.
Lips is a really big deal.
Okay, let's talk about lips.
So lips if I'm in Japan, Korea, or China, making them smaller.
Really?
Yeah, always making them smaller. So like blurring out the edges, intensity on the inside. And actually, I learned something really interesting when I was in Japan about how to make women, they like to look really quite doll-like. And one thing they do is with the bottom lip, it's something I saw like 10 years ago, and I use it all the time. They never like any part of the outer lip to look wide. They like to make it really, like, they're actually short. They actually
the
move
heart
the lip
shape.
in. Yeah, heart shape. And they move the lip in all the time. So if the lips go here, they tend to move it in. So when I do anyone's lip, I really round the bottom lip, and actually just lifts everything. So lip shape's very different in other countries. And contouring, I don't do or see very much contouring in my Korea, Chinese or Japanese. I spend a lot of time in Japan, so that's why I'm talking a lot about Japan. I spend a lot of time off there again next week. But no contouring. It's all about roundness. So where a lot of the Western women love the strong cheekbones and the strong jaw, but that's something I don't find as much in a lot of the Asian countries.
Yeah, same in Eastern Europe. It's just like, again, but that was like trend, like high cheekbones, defined jawline, there's big pouty lips, but now, in the last 12 months, one of the most popular procedures is halazing the lips, because
what's that mean?
It's just dissolving the lips.
Dissolving filler. I even had filler and I got it all taken out. I was like, what? How was I walking around looking like that? Seriously.
Yeah, it's amazing because like you remember probably like 12 months ago or 24 months ago, it was all about those pouty lips.
Yeah. And it wasn't suiting the face
either.
And
it wasn't suitable at all.
No.
And it's like big and and then you actually lose a concept of like when you gotta stop.
Yeah.
When it's becoming dangerous as well, because when you're overfeeling, there is this high risk, over-migration, over-granulation.
Migrates.
That's right. And it's when it just doesn't sit right, when those lips do not belong to that face.
100%. You gotta look at the whole face,
correct.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important, especially in our industry, you gotta say no. Like, you know what, it's too much.
Yeah.
Like, I a really big advocate when it comes to natural beauty, and that's why I really wanted to talk to you today when it comes to skin and makeup and things like that. I think there's nothing more beautiful when you actually enhancing your features, when you feel good in your skin, when you don't follow the trends, you don't follow in like, I want to look like this, and it's like, yes, I do admire that person, they look great, they're amazing, but to really admire yourself, and like your perfect imperfections, like you were saying, like blemishes, yes, it's okay to find, to have wrinkles and fine lines. Totally. I think it's the story of your life. It tells the story about you. Like when you're doing the makeup, saying, oh, like you've got the beauty spot, or you've got a bit of a blemish, or like where you're from, and this person's opening it up to you. It's like, oh, I went there, and this guy is from there, and I grew up, I don't know, in a Western Australia, so it just tells you, who you are. So I think it's really important to being, concentrating on the self-care and making the right choices.
Yeah.
Now, I really want to talk about your brushes, because I'm absolutely fascinated by it. I've got them, and, the difference that I have seen in terms of the applications is just enormous. First of all, I really like the presentation.
And the magnets are I can't believe no one thought of it though before. Like, I can't believe,
how did you come up with this whole concept? Tell me.
I made their whole, like I said, I can't believe no one's actually thought of it before. I'm obsessed with organisation. Like, I've got 400 suitcases. I'm always like trying to organise things, and because I'm very messy. But the main thing it's actually from working on shows internationally. So I did a lot of Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, and I was always surprised how tiny the bench spaces were. Also, when you have a suitcase and you have brushes, and the only thing that we ever have to travel with are those canisters or a brush belt. And the problem with the canisters is a lot of problems, is when a brush turns upside down in your suitcases, they actually hit the top and those fine ones get destroyed. That's one. Two, when you've got canisters and you've got 400 brush heads staring at you and you need a brush quickly, you can't find it.
Right.
Also hygiene. So I'm like, wouldn't it be great if you could just get brushes that could stand up in a small space? So that, like I said, I thought someone must have thought of it before, but went down this path. No one had done it before. So that's number one. Two, I love calligraphy brushes, and there is an absolute huge difference. When you work, the way a calligraphy brush is built is if you think of it the way calligraphy artists paint, I actually didn't know this, but a proper calligraphy artist is only allowed to dip the brush in black paint once. I did not know that. I only went to Japan. I came back a week ago. I didn't actually understand that's why brushes is such a craft. So what an artist is meant to do, they have a white canvas, they have a brush full of paint. That artist has to, with one brush, do the finest hairline line strokes, but with pressure, make that stroke thick to thin with no edges. And I used to use calligraphy brushes for makeup, and I found that what a traditional brush would take 20 to 30 strokes to blend, a calligraphy brush would do it in 3 to 4. So I used to only use art brushes. So I only started to get brushes made for me personally. I found a craftsman that made them for me, and it just organically happened. So I had models and makeup artists say, "Could you make me some?" So I'd get my brush cleaner on the phone, brush maker on the phone. And it actually happened organically. And then what happened is I thought, I wonder who's like the best brush maker in the world. And this is probably my proudest story, is I found there's only one man in the world that can make a Tempio Ude brush, which there's one in the background. I'll bring it over in a moment.
Wow.
It takes to learn so there's only 14 masters ever been awarded in Japan's history. There's only one living master of craft left alive in the world, who's the man who his family and him make brushes for me. And the reason I got him he only makes writing brushes. So a calligraphy brush starts at about 52 steps to make a brush. A traditional makeup brush is about 3 to 4 steps, up to 5. My brushes start at 62 steps. So every single brush is made like a writing brush. They're also the only brushes in the world that have what we call point technology, which is a machine that he's personally made, which keeps any brush that has a point in its shape 3 times longer than any other brush. Their hairs are a patented fibre with the cuticles. They're a vegan, right? We don't need animal hair anymore, and I really hope other brush companies follow through. So it's not synthetic. Synthetic hairs are just like plastic, and they're good for lips, they're good for some things. The problem with synthetics is they're not porous, so they don't pick up product well, and if they do, they dump it on the face. Yeah. So one thing, the point technology, we've got them built like a calligraphy brush. Their hairs are softer than animal hair, but stronger, and they've all been shaped. So for example, this is the trick for makeup. This is what I say to people all the time. We're never really taught how to put makeup onto a brush. I see it on TikTok and all the time. They slam all the product and they tap it all off.
That's right. Yeah, all the time. I'm like, you're losing so much product as well.
Totally. And the way you put it on a brush is really important. So for example, if I'm using blush or bronzer with this brush, you put the product only onto the very, very tip. Always, no matter what brush you use, be very mindful, only onto the very, very tip. And what that does, when you put product just on the tip, it keeps the shorter bristles clean of product. So when you apply it to the face, the product goes on, but when you add pressure, those clean bristles airbrush the edges.
Wow.
So that's
like a total art.
Total art. And your brushes should fit your face. That's why there's so many. So I have 3 cheek brushes. You might have tiny face, medium face, large face. You might have eyes, small, medium, large. So you find the brush that just fits your face, minimum strokes, and you're done. Like cheekbone, this actually worked with 2 plastic surgeons worked with me on this one, because you know the contour line.
Yes, correct.
So if you put the product just here on this part of the brush. You start at the ear, 2 strokes. Even if you can't do makeup, it will give you the exact contour line that a surgeon will use to create that
to
shadow.
define the cheekbone.
Totally. And the back bristles, keep it clean and brush it forward. And before I even released it, I sent it to like my favorite makeup artists all around the world. And until I got, once they said they were the best, I knew they were. So yeah, and like what I love about it, I made them just for me. Yeah, so they are world's first with patent technology in the hair point technology, and I get asked too, how did you get this man to make brushes for you? And what is a really beautiful story. He's got 2 sons, and who have got a bit of a business mind as well, and they know that in the calligraphy world, it's a bit of not a dying art, but kids aren't writing anymore; they're on keyboards. And it took a lot of convincing, because he was like, we don't do makeup brushes, we do writing brushes. I went, I don't want makeup brushes, I want calligraphy, don't change anything that you do. So it took a little bit of time for him to
understand.
That's what we want. We don't want to make this cheaper or different. Correct. We want to keep it exactly the same in the craftsmanship that you do. So we just came back. We're actually going to film a whole documentary. So when you see even every single brush, we're in Japan last week, and
just like handmade it. The way they were just like making it, I was like, wow.
I asked this brush maker, and we filmed, and I said he'd been there. He's a master as well, and he'd been there for 30 years, and he has this job where he shapes the brush and by hand ties it. And I said to him, do your hands get sore? Do you get bored? And he looked at me like, how do you say that? He said, I'm creating art. How could I be bored? I'm like, oh my God, I love you so much. And even watching the way every single head is hand washed, not from their filtered water, but the water, we filmed all of this. Water from a spring. They soak the heads for 24 hours. Then one person, not 100 of them, one person by hand washes each head of the brush. The way they're glued with a seaweed glue, all done by hand. And I'm sitting there going, I mean, this is amazing, but if you wanted to churn out, 5,000 a day, it's not going to happen. So I love the fact that I can keep this craft alive, and also I want to share the whole story. You're going to watch from beginning to end how the whole thing is. And the last thing too, they're all ergonomically balanced. And they have the way they made it similar to the way they talk about it in the way a violin is made. This is mind-blowing. They have the brush hollow so you can feel the vibration. So they've been able to make the brush light with a magnet. So it's all about light brushes. Heavy brushes, you don't feel what's happening. When they make them this light, he told me this story about a calligraphy brush. If I close my eyes, I should know when the brush hits the canvas. Because these are built to be ergonomic, so left-handed, right-handed, they are so light that with my eyes closed, I can feel when I'm touching your face.
Oh, wow.
So it's just a level of craftsmanship that I'm just obsessed with.
It's absolutely amazing, like how meticulous the technology is, and the importance of the quality.
Yeah.
They
should last a lifetime. That's the thing. They should last a lifetime. And that's also why the magnets that holds them in place. We've got like a little travel set what holds everything in place, because it is hard to have a makeup brush in a bag.
Yeah.
And look, when you look at the way calligraphy brush makers look after their brushes, it puts us to shame, because we need to stop. And it's like that they're a piece of art. Take care. If you take care of them, they will last a lifetime. Absolutely.
Yeah. People, I don't know whether they understand, how much it goes into, crafting and making quality products. Like where I come from, we've got a saying, I'm not that rich to buy cheap products. So I rather, buy quality stuff that made, accurately, meticulously, from a good material. Therefore, the result, like application of the makeup, will look differently, and will last you for such a long time.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. If you buy, like I said, buy less but buy good quality.
Yeah.
The other thing too, because of this hair, the reason the application is so good as well, the bristles don't flex. If you look at normal hair bristles, when you're doing something like if you're working with powdered products, what happens with normal bristles, they flick, so you get powder through the hair, you get it everywhere. The way the hair works, it stays, as you can see, it stays in one body. You don't get, that's another reason why they work so well. And that's what I always say, and you don't need 100 of them. You just need to know your eye shape. Okay, there's two ways. The great thing, these handle the strongest alcohol disinfectant. So I have to use, I like to only use product that I know could destroy a cold sore. Because if I've got to go from model to model to model, I need a product that will sterilize, clean, but dry. So I use hospital strength sterilizers, and I never condition them ever. Because the hair isn't a natural fiber, there's nothing to dry out, if that makes sense. So I use really strong brush cleaners. In Australia, I just buy it from a place called Scotty's. And also on my website, just go to raemorris.com. There's a whole brush cleaning video as well. I do obviously use, I use Sard Wonder Soap. It's the one that you use for clothes. And it's upside down, and the only thing you got to remember is however you use it on the face is how you wash it. So for example, if I use a brush like, this is a foundation brush, if I use a brush like this on the face, I can clean it like that. Wow. So soap, no conditioner, warm water, don't ever go too hot. The only thing is with any makeup brush that you own, they glue this, it's called the ferrule, that's actually glued right there. A lot of heat can unglue that. Yeah. But nice hot water. But again, if you use the brush, so for example, an eyeliner is very different. So an eyeliner, you always use a brush on its side. So you never like use the brush like that. You always use the brush on the side. Yeah. So when you clean it, it's on its side. So you put it in brush cleaner, or when you wash it with soap, you just roll it. And it's really important to put them back into the shape as they dry. What I love about the magnets is you hang them upside down. So when you hang a brush upside down, it keeps the shape, and it also stops water sitting in here. Look, the good thing, these aren't natural fibers, but the problem with the natural hair fibers, they smell and grow mold really badly. I've broken parts of my really old brushes that if you're washing them in water, just make sure you're putting them in a place where they can dry quickly. Like still wash them with water, that's fine. If you don't have magnets, that's fine. Just make sure you lay them flat if you can. If you do it on a bench, just make sure that's sitting off the bench. On a wet towel, they take too long to dry. And if they take a really long time and you've got a lot of wood up here, they get full of mold. So,
and you have no idea what's like how they're dry mold and
you know what I did recently? It's a change subject. A note to any mums. I know you're not a mum, but my daughter turned 9 and we did this clear out of her toys, and I found a really cute rubber ducky that she had when she was little, and I thought that colour looks really old. I opened it full of mold.
Oh my
so
gosh.
If you're at home, sorry, I'm completely gone off subject here. Beauty sponges. That's where I was thinking. Be careful those beauty blenders. Those things grow mold like you wouldn't believe. So I love the idea of them. I think they're great for like building makeup, but you won't get a finish like you do with brushes. You just won't. Yeah. Sponges are good for building and adding a lot of layers, but the thing is, the more layers you build, the more you got to maintain, the more you get touch marks. But with a brush, the best way, talking about skin, if you want to get a great coverage, don't get a really sheer foundation if you want to have coverage that you've got to put 7 layers on. What you're better off doing, if you want to buy a foundation, buy one that's got more coverage than what you want, but use less product. Okay. So if you put something on that's a little bit heavier, put it on the face, let it heat for a minute because body temperature really helps. Yeah. Then get the brush and buff it in. And then you get this flawless skin, and you get more coverage with less product. And don't put 17 layers of skincare underneath a foundation if you want it to last, because if you fill the skin with skincare, which is obviously really important, of course, but if you put too much on, then a sunscreen, then you've got a foundation sitting on the top. It's like sitting on this oil plate. Then you get oily.
You're just gonna slide
and then women go, oh, well, then I powder it in, but what's happening when you powder it in, and also that the reason the powder then absorbs all that oil and you just get a hot mess. So either
just get patchy.
Just get patchy. So
at the end of the day.
And use I mean, I know you've got a skincare range out now. It's about using not 17 products, using active, good skincare that you don't have to put too much on and let it soak in. And if your face is really oily and slimy before you put makeup on, it's going to be oily and slimy with makeup on.
Well, okay. One more question before we end. I can sit for hours and talk to
we can
Rae.
talk.
What do you think about toners? There's such a big misconception, and I, again, when patients coming in and like, when I'm asking them, like, please give me your skincare regime and, toner before the makeup application. I'm like, what do you think about toners?
Depends what they mean by toner. Like old school toner with things like alcohol-based astringents that would they basically cleanse your face of oil. I only found out in this last decade that pores don't open and close. I didn't know that. Like that's another lie we all get told. Depends on the word. So like serum's probably a better word, but I don't know if people think they're using a toner to close the pores. That's actually not what they do. Depends on the brand. I think it's a bit of a dying name. Like I know now there's more essences, there's more serums, there's more hyaluronic acids that are put into toners. So it depends what they do. If they're adding a layer of moisture, I just feel that word is a little bit misleading. I think that typical old school alcohol wipe, is going. A lot of those natural waters, do they really do anything? I don't really think so. Depends on the skincare brand. So a lot of skincare brands, they look like a toner, but they're full of actives. So it just depends on what's in it. And again, I think it's really important with skincare. If you want to get into the whole vitamin C and all those actives and niacinamide and it's great, but I think you got to also check the levels as well, because I know that skincare brands can get away with murder. They can put like less than 1% and claim all that. Okay, perfect example. Sunscreens in foundations. That's such a myth.
It's like plus 50, plus 60. And I'm like, really?
No, really.
Turn around the label and you read the actual ingredients.
And also too, like that nut, it's, as you know, it's the amount of sunscreen. You know who I love following to help me and to help everyone get around this? A woman named Michelle, I've met her a few times. Has a page called Lab Muffin.
Okay,
it's
never heard of her.
It's a really good thing. She's a science-based techie skincare geek who loves it, but she exposes all the truths. Like she goes through a lot about sunscreens and how you got to put, 3 fingers, and she goes through this thing. She took all these foundations that had these liquid foundations that had all these sunscreen claims. And she put under the proper lights. She's very medical based, and she showed how much foundation you'd have to actually put on to have that sunscreen benefit. So I really like, she really encourages really good skincare, but she also breaks down a lot of the myths and a lot of the lies. So I think it's about, try and get really educated and be really important. Go to people like you, like you've got a medical background, like it's really important to see people who have this. I love all the organic, I love all that whole, organic thing, but I also love the medical, and I think that's where you come into it really well. The science and the organic together is a really nice place to be.
And people need to also understand that, everyone has a different skin.
Yeah.
And, choosing the right skincare and makeup will be very different to one to another, based on their skin presentation, whether it's oily, where it's dry, where it's dehydrated. Let's talk about Fitzpatrick's as well. So like a different skin type, like your Fitzpatrick 1 or 2, and then you've got African, or Indian, with Fitzpatrick 5 and 6. So, they have different thickness, different
melanin has a lot to do with it, doesn't it?
That's right.
Yeah,
also, like where the person was born, so all the sort of things, people actually don't understand, don't even know how much goes into in terms of choosing the right skincare brand. The skin, what does it do on a daily function? It does one thing during the day, and then it does different things during the night.
Does it?
Correct. Yeah. Because
how does the skin know if it's day or night though?
It does, because
really
melatonin, but it also knows what
melanin.
It does. It has different function during the day in terms of protection, and then during the night it's absorption and nourishment. So the products that you're using during the night is very different to what you're using during the day as well.
Okay. And change your pillowcase. I heard that's a really big thing to do. Change your pillowcase, people.
I advocate that all the time, because makeup
Bacteria.
to, you know, the products you've been using.
Yeah.
You know, are you a side sleeper or you're a back sleeper?
Oh, okay.
You know, all those sort of
I'm a bit of a
things.
face planner. It's not good. I don't mean to, but I wake up with my face up
I
planted.
know. I must admit I'm bad as well. You know, like I'm a side sleeper. You know, no matter how much I try to sleep on my back, I just can't do it.
No,
It's uncomfortable
hard.
for me.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up. Rae, oh my God, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank
you know,
you
it
for
was
having
absolute
me.
pleasure.
I'm going to come and have, you're talking about that facial that I'm going to get done.
Oxalite facial. The
Oxalite. So you watch
the
this
Met
space.
Gala facial.
I'm going to Met Gala. No, I'm going to pretend I'm going to Met Gala, but I'm definitely going to come and have that because I love a lot of the non-invasive stuff. You know.
Yeah, well, you know, oxalite.
Oxalite. How do you spell that so I can Google it?
It's OXYLIGHT.
Okay.
Oxalite.
Proper
It's
spelling.
actually also on my website too.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I want skin like yours. If I can get skin like
Thank
yours,
you.
I'll be happy.
Thank you. Well, I do use when I have time, you know, like pampering myself in front of the window.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of, you know, people that are part of the Met Gala, they prep, you know, they skin 2 weeks prior. So with the Oxalite machine, and what I love about it, it's multi modality equipment, so I can just customize, you know, a treatment according to your skin presentation.
Does it hurt?
No.
Okay, good.
That's the beauty about it.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, please come and try it.
For sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, my darling.
Thank you. Bye.